The first time Marcus Reed's mailbox was hit, he figured it was an accident. He lived at the edge of a wide cul-de-sac, his long gravel driveway cutting across the view of the main road like a chalk line. The box itself was nothing fancy, just a standard black tin mailbox bolted to a wooden post, the kind you could find at any hardware store. When it lay in the ditch that morning, splintered and bent, Reed shook his head, muttered about careless teenagers, and set to work digging a new hole. He told himself not to read too much into it. Things break. People make mistakes. It was easier to patch up the wound in the earth than to go knocking on doors, asking who'd driven across his property at 2 in the morning. But then it happened again. And again. By the third time, Reed wasn't thinking about accidents anymore. He had started to notice a pattern. The tire tracks were always angled from the same direction, always cutting across his ditch in a way that seemed purposeful rather than random. The deep grooves told a story clearer than any eyewitness could. Someone had slowed, swerved off the asphalt, and lined up their bumper just right to take out his mailbox like it was a carnival game. Only this wasn't a game, not to him. Neighbors offered polite shrugs when Reed brought it up. Kids these days, one said. Probably joyriders, said another. But Reed had eyes. He'd seen the dark blue SUV making laps through the neighborhood after sunset, its headlights sweeping like search beams, its driver waving sometimes, scowling others. Everyone called them the HOA cops, though no badge or uniform made it official. They were just a handful of residents with clipboards and grievances, self-appointed enforcers of rules that seemed to multiply every season. Reed had already been on their radar. His pickup truck was too unsightly, they'd told him in a letter. His grass had grown, above regulation height, during a rainy stretch in spring. His dogs, though fenced in, were a nuisance. So when his mailbox was destroyed for the fourth time, shards of wood and metal scattered like shrapnel down the ditch, Reed didn't bother pretending anymore. This wasn't mischief. This was harassment. And he knew exactly who was behind it. Standing at the edge of his property, hands on his hips. He felt the frustration tighten into something heavier, something harder. He thought about how his father used to talk about pride, how a man's home was more than just walls and a roof. It was the land you cared for, the boundaries you set, the little markers that said, "This place is mine, and I intend to keep it that way." A mailbox, plain as it seemed, was part of that. Each time it was knocked down. It was like someone saying he didn't belong, like they could erase him with the nudge of a bumper. Reed stared at the jagged stump of the post and made up his mind. If they wanted a fight, they were going to find out real quick that he wasn't the type to back down. The next morning, Marcus Reed walked the length of his property line with a notebook in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. He wasn't looking at the grass or the fences this time. He was studying the ground itself, the dips where tires had cut into soft soil, the crushed weeds, the faint spray of gravel scattered beyond the ditch. Each mark told him more than any conversation with the HOA board ever would. They had ignored his complaints. The sheriff's deputy who came out the second time had shrugged and called it a civil issue. If justice wasn't going to come from them, then Reed would carve it out himself. He drove into town and started asking questions at the feed store, the lumber yard, even the small welding shop on the far side of Main Street. People knew him. He'd grown up in the county, played ball here, bought his first calf at the auction barn just 10 miles away. They listened when he said he needed something stronger than a wooden post. They nodded when he explained, without going into detail, that someone kept targeting his property. No one asked too many questions. Folks out here understood that sometimes you had to protect what was yours. By the end of the day, he had the makings of a plan. A length of industrial, grade steel pipe lay in the bed of his pickup. heavy enough that it took 2 men and a dolly to load it. He had 3 bags of concrete mix stacked beside it, the kind that hardened into a pillar strong enough to hold up a barn. To anyone else, it might have looked like supplies for a weekend project, but Reed knew exactly what he was building: a mailbox no bumper could bully. That evening, as the sun slipped low and painted the pasture in orange light, he dug. Sweat ran down his back as the shovel bit into clay and gravel. He dug until the hole was deep enough that even a storm wouldn't shake what he planned to anchor there. Then came the post, lowered carefully, its hollow ringing against the sides of the pit. He mixed concrete in a wheelbarrow, poured it steady, tamped it down, poured again. By the time the last bag was emptied, the steel stood upright, unwavering, like a flagpole planted in enemy territory. For appearance's sake, Reed kept the outside simple. He built a wooden casing around the steel, sanding and staining it so it looked like nothing more than a clean, ordinary mailbox post. The box itself he chose deliberately plain. No fancy paint, no big numbers, nothing to draw attention. It was camouflage in its purest form, ordinary on the surface, indestructible underneath. When he stepped back to look at the finished work, he felt something he hadn't in months, a sense of control returning, brick by brick, weld by weld. This wasn't about vengeance, not entirely. It was about refusing to be run over, in more ways than one. He didn't know when they would strike again, but deep down, he hoped they would. The nights after Marcus Reed finished his mailbox project carried a different kind of silence. Before, he would lie awake listening for the hum of engines, the sweep of headlights cutting across his curtains, the telltale crunch of tires in gravel. Now, he found himself waiting with a quiet anticipation, almost daring them to come. Every groan of a distant truck on the highway, every faint bark of his dogs sent a jolt through him. His new mailbox stood at the end of the driveway like a sentinel, cloaked in plain wood, hiding its iron spine. To anyone else, it looked fragile, almost inviting. But Reed knew it was coiled strength, waiting. It happened on a Thursday night just past 11. He had just turned off the lamp in his living room when he heard it. The low, prowling growl of an SUV circling the deep sack. He didn't need to look to know who it was. His dogs rose from their mats, tails stiff, ears pricked. Reed moved quietly to the window, parting the curtain just enough to see. The familiar dark, blue vehicle slowed in front of his property. Its headlights swept across the ditch, then lingered on the post standing tall at the end of the drive. The SUV stopped. For a moment, everything was still. Reed could almost see the driver leaning forward, deciding. Then the engine revved, tires squealed against the pavement, and the vehicle lurched forward with purpose. Reed didn't flinch. He just folded his arms and watched. The impact came with a sound like thunder, a crack of metal against metal, followed by the shriek of twisting steel and shattering glass. The SUV bucked as if it had hit a wall. The front end crumpled inward, steam erupting from the radiator. The force threw the back wheels half into the ditch, the engine wheezing its last breath. And the mailbox. It didn't move an inch. It stood there unscathed, almost mocking in its stillness, while the predator lay broken at its feet. Reed opened his front door slowly, letting the screen creak on its hinges. The dogs padded out beside him, their low growls rumbling in the night. He walked down the gravel drive, calm as Sunday morning, until he was close enough to see the wide-eyed driver behind the shattered windshield. It was exactly who he thought it would be, a member of the self-styled HOA patrol, a man who had waved at him with a smirk just weeks earlier. Now, that same face was pale, shocked, framed by the white bloom of an airbag. Reed didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The scene spoke for itself, a battered SUV steaming in the ditch, and a mailbox that looked as if it had never been touched. For the first time in months, Reed felt the weight on his chest lift. He turned back toward the house, the sound of his boots steady on the gravel. Behind him, the mailbox stood guard, unyielding, as if it had always been part of the land. By dawn, the story had already started spreading. Reed didn't have to say a word. The wreck in the ditch said everything for him. The blue SUV sat there like a carcass, nose crushed, hood buckled, one headlight dangling loose. Steam had dried into white streaks across the fender. It was impossible to miss, especially in a neighborhood where people prided themselves on manicured lawns and spotless driveways. The first joggers slowed their pace to stare. A mother walking her kids to the bus stop whispered under her breath. By mid-morning, small clusters of neighbors gathered at the end of Reed's drive, pointing and murmuring like spectators at a crime scene. Reed watched from his porch, coffee in hand, dogs stretched out at his feet, saying nothing. He didn't need to explain himself, not anymore. The mailbox stood untouched, solid as stone, while the SUV beside it was a twisted reminder of who had been picking the fight. Around 10, a tow truck rumbled into the cul-de-sac. The operator shook his head as he hooked the chain, muttering about how he'd never seen a mailbox win a battle like that. Reed almost smiled, though he kept his face neutral. The driver of the SUV, his neighbor, a man named Hal, who had spent months playing patrol officer on behalf of the HOA, stood off to the side with his arms crossed, jaw tight, saying nothing. His wife had come to collect him earlier, red-faced and avoiding everyone's eyes. By noon, the whispers had turned to bold conversations. Reed overheard them as he worked on his fence line. "Did you hear? Hall rammed it again last night. Looks like he hit the wrong one this time. Serves him right, going after Marcus like that." For the first time in months, Reed noticed that some neighbors were on his side, or at least willing to admit what had been happening. A retired couple from 2 houses down came by with a pie and a shake of the head. "We always knew they were messing with you," the woman said softly. "Glad you stood your ground." The HOA board, however, wasn't nearly as generous. By evening, Reed found a letter taped to his door. The tone was cold, clipped, full of formal phrases. Safety hazard. Structural violation. Non-compliance with HOA design standards. They demanded he remove or replace the mailbox immediately. Reed read it twice, folded it neatly, and slid it into a drawer. He had expected nothing less. But now, with half the neighborhood buzzing about Hall's wreck, he knew the board had lost their quiet advantage. The story was no longer his word against theirs. The evidence had been loud, public, undeniable. That night, Reed stepped out onto his porch and looked toward the end of the driveway. His mailbox stood silhouetted in the glow of the streetlight, unyielding. For the first time, he felt like it wasn't just holding his mail, it was holding the line. The letter wasn't the last shot the HOA fired. Within a week, Marcus Reed's mailbox had gone from a neighborhood curiosity to the center of a quiet war. The board sent more notices, each one stiffer than the last. First, they claimed the mailbox violated aesthetic harmony. Then, they argued it posed a threat to community safety. By the third letter, they were threatening fines of $200 a day until he removed it. Reed each one calmly, setting them aside on the kitchen table like a stack of unpaid bills he had no intention of acknowledging. He'd grown up around men who knew how to outlast a storm. Patience wasn't weakness, it was power. The HOA wanted him to fold, to tear out the one thing that had stood its ground against their harassment. He wasn't about to give them that satisfaction. Still, the pressure was real. Hal, the man who'd crashed his SUV, had filed an insurance claim blaming Reed's hazardous construction. Others on the board echoed his complaint, trying to paint Reed not as the victim, but as the aggressor. At the grocery store, Reed overheard snippets of conversations, some siding with him, some shaking their heads about how stubborn he was. He knew how these things went, small towns and tight, Knit communities liked order, and he had disrupted it simply by refusing to be run over. One evening, a board member showed up at his gate. A heavy-set man with a clipboard and a forced smile. He tried a softer approach. "Marcus, look, nobody wants this to escalate. If you just swap the post out for something less dangerous, we can all move on." Reed leaned against the fence and met the man's gaze. "Dangerous for who?" he asked. "Mail's getting delivered just fine." The board member shifted, muttered something about liability, and left without pressing further. Word of the encounter traveled just as fast as the wreck had. Some neighbors admired his defiance, stopping by to shake his hand or clap him on the shoulder. Others kept their distance, wary of being pulled into the feud. But Reed noticed something else too. The nightly patrols had stopped. The SUV was gone, and the cul-de sac was quieter than it had been in months. Whatever threats the HOA scribbled on their letters, none of them seemed eager to test his mailbox again. At night, Reed sat on his porch with a glass of sweet tea, watching the streetlight glow on the steel post hidden beneath its wooden shell. He thought about his father, about the lessons he'd learned on hard soil, how sometimes you didn't have to fight with fists or words. Sometimes all you had to do was build something that couldn't be moved. The HOA could huff and puff all they wanted. His mailbox was more than a box now. It was a statement, quiet but unyielding, the kind of statement that made people think twice before crossing a line.